The horror genre was reaching a height it had never seen before in Japan during the late 90s and early 2000s. Whether they're films that played with the uncertainty of our dependence on technology, movies about vengeful spirits, or simply ultraviolence, they always tied back to the all-consuming nature of our own hubris like the many films before. It's no secret that I'm a fan of this stuff by now, and upon revisiting Ju-on the Grudge, only reminded me of how J-horror just rules. Takashi Shimizu is the sole creator of what's become the Ju-on franchise, being both the writer and director of the original set of films. Despite what you may think, Ju-on the Grudge is actually the third movie in the series, as it began as a pair of V Cinema films released in 2000 under Ju-on the Curse. But as a matter of fact, this actually wouldn't be where Ju-on saw its beginnings, as in 1998, Shimizu wrote and directed a pair of shorts titled Katasumi and Ten Fours after acclaimed filmmaker Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who Shimizu was an assistant director for at the time, recommended him to the Kansai Telecasting Corporation when they commissioned a feature-length horror production for an anthology titled School Ghost Story G. So, by technicality, Ju-on the Grudge is actually the fifth movie in the series, believe it or not. All of these films would follow a similar format that would be carried over into The Grudge, as it's a story that's divided into multiple parts where people find themselves haunted by a spirit who consumes anyone who gets caught in their wrath. The one thing tying them all is the inclusion of Takako Fuji, the actress who plays the unforgiving, restless spirit of Kayako Seiki. When Ju-on the Curse managed to garner plenty of acclaim, it was enough to warrant a studio film based on the idea, and after directing one of the Tomie sequels based on the Junji Ito manga, Shimizu would get to work on taking his story to the big screen in 2002. Ju-on the Grudge is centered around a curse that was the result of a man murdering his family. The house is bought by the Tokunaga family as they start to experience this supernatural phenomenon for themselves before an investigation of the house is launched after a social worker, Rika, played by Megumi Okina, witnesses Kayako. The way this movie handles suspense is truly incredible work. Just the way shots are framed and how they tend to linger are done in a way that really gets under your skin. It feels like such an unnatural way to do cinematography that really adds to the surreal nature of what's at hand. The cinematographer in question is Tokusho Kikumura, who already had his foot in the horror scene and collaborated with Kiyoshi Kurosawa on Cure. It all comes back to Kurosawa, doesn't it? I think what really helps with the visual identity of the film is how you see the Seiki family in well-lit scenery. Often we think of spirits lurking in the shadows, creatures of the night, but here's a movie where the spirits are in plain view no matter what. It really makes them all the more terrifying, as if to say, yeah, you're not sleeping with the lights on either. This is where I have to give props to the performances of Takako Fuji and Yuya Ozeki as Kayako and Toshio respectively. In addition to their cold, stiff, and lifeless appearances, their mere presence really elevates the fear and tension in every scene they're in, popping up when you least expect it. All of these elements combined, mixed in with how most of the sound design is diegetic, truly makes for one of the most immersive horror films I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. The music by Shiro Sato is used very effectively. It's always nice when a movie's soundtrack doesn't quite take center stage, but whenever it appears, it truly makes the whole thing much greater than it is. It really adds to the film's eeriness, as it wounds up injecting a sense of dread. But in addition to being a legitimately terrifying film, Ju-on is a very tragic one at that. The ruthless anger that is expressed by Kayako and Toshio will always come for anyone who ends up disturbing them, but it's sad that their spirits will never be laid to rest properly and that innocent people will have to suffer because of it. We feel sorry for both these characters and anyone who comes into their home, as Kayako and Toshio were victims of man at its worst. They've embraced that horrific and monstrous nature, and now inflicted on those who never wanted to be met with such brutality. so that way people know the suffering they've endured themselves. It's very much Shimizu warning us of our inherent destructiveness as a species and how easy it is for us to take. We see how these actions affect us and who we are. We see how they affect the people we love. We see how they affect anyone who just so happens to be around us. I will always love it when such a simple film as this can have so many layers to it. And of course, Ju-on would be successful enough to spawn a sequel, a pair of American adaptations directed by Shimizu himself, and many more. The movie is truly a landmark from a beloved era of Japanese horror, and I absolutely cannot recommend it enough. It's scary, it's haunting, dreadful, suspenseful, tragic, sad. Do yourself a favor and check it out. But what do you guys think? Have y'all seen Ju-on the Grudge? How about its sequels, remakes, or reboots? Unfortunately, my entry into Ju-on was with the 2020 film. Let me tell you, that shit was boring. But you wanna know what isn't boring? My first ever novel, Titanious Book 1, Rise of the Titans. At least that's what Kaiju United will have you believe. Go ahead and check it out. Signed copies are available through my eBay page. Thank you to my channel members and supporters on Patreon, where if you like what you see and want to get early access to videos, exclusive content, click the link below. Other than that, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy, everyone.